if you make a mistake within your career, then you really internalize that of, I've messed up in who I am.
What's your overall arching philosophy that you instill within yourself and then also you help push out to others?
Yeah, we are the architects of creating the best employee experience, which then leads to a successful business.
Donna Ellis is a senior HR leader at Amazon.
She began her career in mental health before moving into human resources. She leads with empathy, strategy, and lived experience.
People didn't trust HR. Yeah, we're here to support the business, but we have to do that through supporting the people. To be that strategic leader, you have to understand the business. Like, if you don't understand what our hourly folks are out there doing and then how our leaders of those folks are trying to lead, like you just can't consult on it, right?
How can a person that's watching right now shift their mindset from that more transactional model to that transformational model?
This can't just be a job. It can't be a, like, I've got this task, this task, this task. Like, you're dealing with people, right? And so people are different. So
can you share a defining moment that shaped your approach to human resources and leadership?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's a great question.
Here's an actual cool fact, yo. Did y'all know that you get 86,400 seconds deposited into your day? So you get that much time in your day. Now the question is, what are you utilizing that time to do? Are you impacting lives? Are you impacting your organization? I always love to tell, like, entrepreneurs, Fortune 500 leaders, executives, what are you doing to help excel yourself, upskill yourself so you can be able to impact your organization on a day-to-day basis? What we do on this podcast is help bring in the top tier talent so you're able to learn, you'll be able to continue to build on to what you constantly are doing as a leader so you can continually transform your organization. The way you can help us do that, to bring in that top tier talent all the time, is to be able to subscribe down below. Because what that does, it allows us to continue to bring in those type of people that you want to hear. I'll see you in the episode. Donna, there's 86,400 seconds in a day that we're given. Your HR career has been marked by commitment to empathy and collaboration. Can you share a defining moment that shaped your approach to human resources and leadership?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's a great question. So actually, prior to getting into HR, my background was working in mental health. So I worked with adults with intellectual disabilities who had dual diagnosis, right? So maybe it was bipolar, schizophrenia, so on and so forth. So I think doing that work, starting out doing really direct care, then working into management and then into HR, it really just taught me people are people and to meet them where they're at. When I think about a defining moment in my HR career, it's a very clear moment for me. And I was a brand new HR manager. I'd promoted multiple times within Amazon. Get a call on a Sunday around an employee who is showing suicidal ideation. Why I say that's impactful, because unfortunately I had received calls like this before. I don't want to say it's common, but it's something we do have to deal with. But what was different with this one was, as I dug into what happened, this employee was a former University of Kentucky basketball player. Wow. If you follow sports, you know that's a big deal. He was now working as an entry-level employee, was struggling with depression, struggling with where he was in his life. The problem was, though, we made a mistake as an organization and provided feedback to him on something that we shouldn't have provided feedback on him. And while I don't believe that was what completely threw him there, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. And for me, I continue to take that with me of the impact we can have. And while to us, it's maybe just a piece of paper, we're saying, hey, we need you to correct this action. It could really be impactful to the person. And so ensuring that, one, it's the right feedback, and then to how we deliver that, and really are connected with our employees to understand when they're at that point to get ahead of that and provide them with the right resources.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean,
Yeah.
especially, being a former athlete and hearing that, like sometimes our identity is stuck on the sport.
Yeah.
And we played it for so many years, and we kind of get to a point where like, oh my gosh, like now I'm starting over and I have to restart my life almost in a sense.
Yeah.
And me and my friends have talked about this, where it's like, some folks, like when you graduate from school, or like say you go to play professional sports, or you go to play professional sports or something, and then you finish. Some people from school got a jump start ahead of you because they just went straight into the workforce.
Right.
Whereas we're still playing this game, we're getting paid. But if it's like straight from college too, like those emotions hit you.
Yeah.
And there's so much that that goes on inside you. And even beyond just sports, you got folks that are at certain positions for multiple years. I was talking to someone recently about what happened with the IRS and folks getting fired from there. Some folks have been there for a lifetime, so it's like they're like, man, what do I do next? And it's like, well, like there's other opportunities out there, but getting out your mind of like, this is who I am. So what's your thoughts about like breaking through that piece of it?
I think it's an excellent point, because I think even beyond sports, if you're really tied to your career, that can become your identity, right?
Yeah.
And the problem with that is, if you make a mistake within your career, then you really internalize that of, I've messed up in who I am, right? And it can be really hard. And I think, look, I have gone through a huge evolution in my career. Like, who I was when I started with Amazon is not who I am now. Learned lots of lessons. We like to say you hit a wall. I never understood that till I hit the wall. And being able to recognize it's a mistake. Nobody's perfect. It wasn't something, you do intentionally. It's not a malicious thing. It's you thought you were going in the right direction and it just wasn't. Being able to step back and then rethink it, but then recognize that mistake isn't who you are.
Right.
It's within the job you're doing. And so I think, especially if you're super passionate about what you do and you really love what you do, like I love what I do. Very passionate about it. It's not an 8 to 5 thing for me, but it's also not who I am. And so I think you have to be able to separate those things regardless of your track in life, because otherwise you just internalize it and, attach it to your mental health, and it's just not a good thing.
Who is Donna Ellis?
It's interesting. Donna Ellis has evolved even more personally over the last 2 years due to personal situations within my life. And right now I'm happy. Like, if I had to say one word, I'm happy. I'm at peace with myself. I think a great book I've read recently, the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I don't know if you've read that.
I'm going to put it on my book list now.
It's a fantastic book for those who struggle with tying themselves to things, because it's really about controlling what you can control, right? And not letting other people and their behaviors or reactions impact who you are.
Right.
Like, I've got a decision I've got to make, and I'm going to do my best to help you through that, but I can't control how you react. And those are the things you have to let go of and just be like, let them, right? I highly recommend it. I think Mel Robbins needs to give me stock in the book, because I've recommended it so many times to people, but it really is impactful. And I think for me personally, it's helped me, both personally and professionally, grow and just be happy in who I am. Like, very comfortable in my space. Look, I just recently turned 50. It took me a long time to get here.
First off, you don't look 50.
Well, thank you. Water is life. I say it all the time. But no, it brings you this piece of, I'm gonna do what I can do to help people. And for me personally, I'm very passionate, so I do that a lot. But I also have to take care of myself, and I think that it's been an evolution for sure.
Well, thanks for explaining that, because we do evolve over time, and I like how you said you're not your job. You're not that. You're not the title. You show up every day because you enjoy this. But like, say there's a pivot that will happen in your life, but you're always you seem like you're not. It's not hard for you to adjust, to move.
Yeah. No, I think working for Amazon, you can't be stuck in change. And, you know, what you just said about being tied to a title, my previous role to what I'm in now, I was managing, multiple regions, 24 buildings across multiple states, lots of travel. And then, I was asked by a director to come back and focus on one building. And, I'm not going to lie, I was like, why do I want to go back into a building? Like, I've got this big career, I travel, I go to all these cities, and, I take care of all these buildings. But I really thought about it and thought about what the needs of this building were and how my strengths played into that.
Yeah.
If you look at it on paper, it looks almost like stepping back. But I'll tell you, my scale and scope is much bigger than it was in the previous role. And more important to me, the impact I'm having is there. I feel like I'm able to really make very intentional culture shifts in a building that has struggled with that. All the way from our employees who are working out on the floor to our leadership team to the director of the building. It's been a really, really cool 8 months to be a part of, and it's probably one of the highlights of my career when I think of the 12 years I've been with Amazon.
When it comes to growing up, tell us a little bit about your childhood and how this evolved into the HR space.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I grew up Polk County, Florida. If you're familiar with Polk County, Florida, very small community, Auburndale, Florida. Had a stable parents. My parents were married until, unfortunately, they both passed, but were married 49 years before my father passed. 2 sisters. I'm a middle child. Most people are able to pick up on that pretty quickly. But we grew up poor. Like, we didn't have money. There were many holidays where there weren't gifts. I never felt poor, though. Because we have my family, right? And we still, whether it was a family dinner or, my aunts and uncles would come over and stuff and things like that. It wasn't really until I got older, I would say like middle school, high school age, where I recognized we're not good financially, right? And I think where that has helped me evolve is, one, I've had to be a hustler my whole life. Like, nothing was given to me. I had to scrap for everything. I had to earn everything. So it created a focus and dedication of what I'm going to do is going to be intentional and important.
Right.
Because I don't have the time, resources to waste. But it also helped me and continues to help me be relatable, to help meet people where they are. Because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to, it be a Monday, not getting paid until Friday and have $5 in my bank account. And it's like, do I put gas in my car to get to work and eat some ramen noodles? Or, what do I do here?
That's real.
And so I think it's helped me be very relatable and approachable. When I think about my current role, people didn't trust HR. They didn't trust being able to come to the leadership team with HR. And look, I have a team of 20 in this building, and it was from the entry level all the way up to the role that I'm currently in that there was disconnect, and it was very transactional work. So it was important to me to come into this space and shift the culture and remind people of why we're here. We're here to support the business, but we have to do that through supporting the people. If you don't get folks on your side and wanting to do the work, you're just going to fail. And so if ultimately all you're focused on is production, right, it's just not going to work. So I think my background of who I am and who I was and how I was raised has helped me come in and be relatable in a space where people treated HR as a very kind of corporate function.
Yeah.
People behind a desk, typing away, barking out orders, and, being that person who goes out on the floor and just talks to people and like, oh, today's your anniversary, congratulations, and making it a big deal and sending like a kudos and making sure they're recognized for that. All the way to where you have somebody who's struggling with something personally and they don't know how to handle it. And,
Right.
A lot of our processes and policies, and I think this is true across the board for large organizations, are gray intentionally. And we as big leaders have to be able to make high level judgment decisions.
Right.
Like, ultimately, what's the right thing to do? Like, okay, this person is exhausted all their time. They have a kid with special needs who has a doctor's appointment. I'm going to excuse their time. Like, go do what you got to do, right? Like, it's the right thing to do. And so not just me doing that, but at some point I will go into a new role. So how do I set that as the culture and tone with that building?
A lot you said there that is really impacting them, especially like what you said, shifting the culture, shifting transformation.
Yeah.
Why do you think some HR leaders don't do that initially? Is it just more of a job? Yeah, just a job to them and they show up 9 to 5? Or is it like they're burnt out? Like, why do you think? Because like, now you're coming in, you're bringing impact right away. Why? And then I'm talking about multiple corporations that have folks that have done that. And I've seen it in NFL as well. Where does that come from, and how can a person that's watching right now shift their mindset from that more transactional model to that transformational model?
I think there's a few things you said, right? Like, this can't just be a job. It can't be a, like, I've got this task, this task, this task. Like, you're dealing with people, right? And so people are different. So you can't approach it that way. You have to really understand the role. I often will talk to folks and they're like, oh, I want to go into HR, and it'll be an operational leader, and I'm like, well, tell me why. And I'll get things like, oh, I love like handing out cupcakes, and I'm like, so we're not party planners. Like, really making sure, one, you understand the role,
right, and
that it is a strategic partnership,
but it's also taking care of our folks. The other thing that you hit on was burnout.
It's a big one.
HR is a heavy role. Like, you hear a lot of tough things, and it weighs on you. So I think one of the biggest things we have to do that we're not always great at doing is self-care. And you have to figure out what that looks like for you and make it a non-negotiable. Like, it's a non-negotiable. Like I said, it's different for everybody. I know some people who it's making sure they're home in time to have dinner with their family. Some people, it's going to the gym. Some people, like myself, have standing ear equipment. That may sound silly. That's important to me, right? And then also disconnecting when you can.
Right.
Often I'll either have peers or people on my team or operations I support that are on vacation, but they're still responding to stuff. And like, stop doing that. And there's a few reasons for that. One, take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. You also can cause confusion. Like, they're like, wait, I thought you were off, and I thought this was your proxy. Who do I go to? And you also rob people of development. Like, you rob people of the opportunity to step up. So you step away. We often want to protect people and put them in this bubble and not let them fail, but I really believe there's dignity in failure, and that's what we learn, right? Like, I say all the time at Amazon, we don't have the power to shut the website down.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Unless it's something unethical, we're going to recover from it. And, I think also sharing your mistakes along the way. I made a ton of mistakes, like, really, like, stuff I look back, I'm like, oh, that was really dumb. But I share those things to, one, make sure others don't make the mistake.
Right.
But two, also see like, wow, like, Donna started out as this HR business partner, this L4 entry level, and now she's an L7 senior regional. And she did it making mistakes.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to do all those things.
So, Donna, when it comes to like, I heard you say mistakes, I heard you say, they overall become lessons.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, like, it becomes like, it's like you had someone said this to me one time, and I'm like, it makes sense. Like, yeah, I had multiple opportunities. They're like, opportunity, like, yeah, I made some, like, there were mistakes, but like, no, there were opportunities.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I could frame it that way.
Yeah, I like to call them treasures, right? Like if they're your mistakes or problems you have, they're treasures, right? You learn from them and you figure them out, and you're better for it.
Love that. When it comes to your HR philosophy, what's your overall arching philosophy that you instill within yourself, and then also you help push out to others?
Yeah. I once saw something similar to this on LinkedIn, and it resonated with me about we are the architects of creating the best employee experience, which then leads to a successful business, right? And so I really like to keep that in the forefront of I'm building this, right? Like I'm not just like coming in into a format that's right there, you know, for me, and I, you know, go do step A, step B. Like, no, I'm building this and creating it, and most importantly, setting it up to be sustainable. That this is what it is, right? It's my legacy when I move on, and I've taught others that along the way.
That is powerful to hear that. You're essentially an entrepreneur in the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not we said this in the podcast a while ago, it's not just a support function. It's a business strategic function now HR has turned into. So it's cool to hear that it's definitely changed into something way different than what it used to be. So you're helping create the foundation. So when you leave, like someone else can transform it even more, but keep on stacking on top. But do you see it that way in your eyes? Like almost like you're like a business owner inside of the company.
Yeah, I think you know, as an HR leader, if you're going to have an impact, you have to have a seat at the table. The thing you have to recognize, though, is that seat's not given. You have to earn it. And you know, I think as a support function, one of the most important things we have to be able to do is influence, and you can only do that if you've earned the trust of the people around you. I do look at it as my group is its own entity. However, it's got dotted lines out throughout the business, right? Like I don't report to the director of operations of my building. And you know, we set that up very intentionally within Amazon because I can't be in a position of where I'm advising my boss, right? And so I think to be that strategic leader, you have to earn the trust. You have to understand the business too. Like if you don't understand what our hourly folks are out there doing, and then how our leaders of those folks are trying to lead, like you just can't consult on it, right? And so I think especially within Amazon, there's so many lines of businesses, you know, and I worked in returns. I worked in logistics, which is our delivery, all the little blue vans driving around. Now I'm in our robotics side, right? And so in each one of those groups, had to understand that business and what it's like and how it impacts our employees, so I can then help our leaders make the right decisions for the business.
That's good. It's good to hear. Like, I mean, I'm glad that you said that, because I know there's people that need to hear that.
Yeah.
There's people that need to understand that you can't just hop in. I mean, even think about this. What would you say, like someone coming from a totally different organization, coming into Amazon, senior roles before all this stuff, but haven't had a chance to experience Amazon yet. So what would you say about that, like the importance of you need to get your hands dirty sometimes to be able to know the experience?
You know, I think it's coming in, the higher levels you come in, the tougher it is, because Amazon is very peculiar. It is not your typical HR function. And so, you know, what you said is the exact advice I give. Like, you need to get out there and understand what our associates go through, what our leaders of those associates go through. And you need to understand the whys of what we're doing. You know, we do a lot of Amazon speak. We love an acronym, right? To the point where even 12 years and I'm like, what does that mean? And you know, I'm like going in and Googling it and like, what are we talking about? But you have to do that. You have to, I always say, our development is circular. I am very responsible for developing our operations leaders they also developed me. I learned from them. When I came into Amazon, I had never worked in distribution, never worked in any kind of like factory type job, if you will. Like everything was social services and mental health. And so I was like, what the heck am I doing here? Like literally like my first 6 months was in my boss's door saying, you've hired the wrong person.
Oh my God.
And you know, thank goodness he had a lot of faith in me. But what I did do was I had some fantastic operations partners that, one, I think we're not always great at being intentional in our speak and open in what we say. But I was very clear with them at like, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. It's not me trying to get in your business. I'm trying to learn. And please take me as a partner as we're going along and teach me, because that's what I need. And, you know, fortunately, I had some fantastic operations leaders, some of which I'm still in contact with, which is funny. We laugh about all of our growth. You know, they were really great at taking me under their wing and teaching me the business. And I had a regional when I first started who instilled in myself and others that, yes, you are HR leaders. However, you should understand the business enough that if something happened, you can go out on the floor and run the business.
Come on now.
Yeah. And so I say I know enough to be dangerous. Like I'm like, oh, you know, you may not want to put me over there, but you know, we'll figure it out. So yeah, I think when you come in, regardless of your level, and you gotta let that level stuff go. Like we talk a lot about levels at Amazon, but you got to be careful to not create a disconnect. I've had employees who will look me up in phone tool and they're like, oh, you're a senior regional, I can't talk to you. I'm like, I'm Donna.
It's like, I'm Donna, come on.
Come on, let's talk, right? I'm Donna from Polk County, let's talk, right?
How does empathy play a role in HR?
Yeah, I think I'd like to actually expand. I think it plays a role in leadership. I think if you are leading folks, and it's very distinctive, leadership versus management, you have to meet people where they're at. I say that so much. I feel like I need to like tagline somewhere. You have to meet people where they're at.
Right.
And understand it. You know, often you'll hear like, oh, you've got to leave your baggage at the door, and it's not possible. Like we are who we are, and we bring who we are to work. And personally, I encourage people to bring their authentic self to work. And sometimes that authentic self has had a bad day at home, and you have to recognize that. And let me be very clear, that also doesn't give you a pass to come in and act a fool, right? But everything. We also need to understand sometimes people have stuff going on at home,
right? And
you got to be empathetic to that and recognize that and see how can I be flexible, and that's where I think is the key with empathy. And you have to be flexible, right? Like you can't be rigid all the time to say, nope, your expectation is to go to this station and go produce this amount of results and do it this specific way. And like, it may be like, your lunch are going to take you 10 minutes. Go grab a cup of coffee and go do what you got to do, right? Or when I think about my team personally, which is a little bit different, it may be a thing of where I'm like, hey, like, let's switch some things up. You don't have to like work this 9 to 5. Like, do you need to come in a little later because you have this doctor's appointment, or do you need to, you know, leave a little early because you've got this program with your kid you want to go see? And I think like empathy and flexibility kind of play hand in hand.
That's it. So how do you create, what strategies do you create that allow a supportive work culture?
Okay.
And you know, what do you utilize to help them be able to have those well-being moments they need at work? Or how do you create that culture or support mechanisms there to help them?
Yeah, I think it starts again earning trust. It's my favorite leadership principle at Amazon is our trust. You got to get the team to a place to where they're comfortable talking to you about those things. And sometimes it's not like telling you all their business, but just hey, I've got some stuff going on at home with my kid, right? So I think you have to create that space. I think you have to also be intentional up front about, you know, when I think about, for example, my salaried HR leaders on my team, I will often say, like, you work responsibilities, not hours. And that looks a little different, right? Sometimes that, yeah, you've got a certain schedule you work, right? But maybe you don't have too much going on today. And I'm like, peace out, go home. You've done what you need to do. I do that though, knowing that it may be a Saturday and stuff blows up and I'm going to call you and say, I need your help with this.
Yeah.
So it's a give and take, right? But for me, I'm always very upfront with that. When I have a new team, I come in, I'm like, these are my expectations, right? Like, we ultimately support the business. We need to make sure that we've got this taken care of. However, I also want to take care of you. So I'm going to be very open with you. Feel free to come and talk with me about those things. I do regular one-on-ones with my team. And we focus on their development, but I also in that meeting am intentional to say, how are you? Right? Like, how are you personally? Thankfully, I've gotten to a great place with my team where they're pretty comfortable talking to me about what's going on with them personally. That wasn't always the case. As you're building those relationships, I still continue to ask the question. And then I'm also open about me. Right? Especially when we think about mental health in the workplace, I'm very open that I struggle with anxiety. And I share that because I want to create a safe space. Like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to not be okay. And to be that person who could help facilitate those conversations and connect resources.
Definitely. Thank you for being, just your general impression. This like the first time I met you and hearing that, like, creating a safe workplace, safe collaborative workplace for our employees to feel comfortable, to be vulnerable, to be open. But that's what's needed. When it comes to, because there's always a good side and there's always friction that happens. So when implementing empathetic or some type of empathy-driven cultures, what challenges have you faced, and then how do you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest challenge I face is when someone doesn't want to buy into the vision or direction we're going. And how I overcome that is, one, I'm always clear with what that vision is and where we're going. I'm also very clear of like, hey, I recognize this isn't for everybody. This isn't the direction you want to go. Where do you want to go? And let me help you get there. Unfortunately, sometimes that results in performance managing and people leaving the organization. For me, my goal is always, when that happens, that it's not a big blow up, because I've been continuously having these conversations. And I'm a firm believer, you don't have to be a jerk to get tough feedback.
Right.
And I think people struggle with that. I think sometimes people struggle giving tough feedback because they think they have to be mean about it.
Yeah.
That's just not the case, right? Like, often people will say feedback is a gift. I believe feedback also a gift can be returned sometimes. But you take from it what you will. You take from it what you believe will impact you. But we as leaders also owe it to people to let them know when they're not going in the right direction.
Right.
And then it goes back to the let them theory. What they do with that is up to them.
Yep.
Like, I'm going to provide you the resources. I'm going to give you the support. I'm going to give you the feedback. But what you choose to take away from that, I can't control that. That's on you.
Lead a horse to water, you can.
That's right. That's right.
So I was saying, when it comes to, we're going to pivot, like when it comes to like the technology you use actually in HR to that, because we're big on like the total 8 dimensions of wellness and physical, social, the whole all 8 dimensions. What kind of technology do you utilize on the well-being side and also in your day-to-day HR function?
Yeah, HR, I think, has evolved to being a very analytical business. Often, especially at the C-suite, there's a thought of HR doesn't pay for itself. So we have to show where we are having an impact, right? Whether it's reducing attrition, increasing retention, increasing a positive job satisfaction rate, creating this open door policy where people feel very comfortable coming to us to where they don't need third party representation. And so, for us personally at Amazon, we have a ton of technology, right? And we're very fortunate to have very smart software development engineers who also listen to the field and like, what do you need? And when I think back to when I started 12 years ago, to when we were literally doing talent reviews on an Excel spreadsheet, to where we are now, where we have a web-based suite of talent options that are all housed in one place. We've really grown leaps and bounds, right? And so I think that's a huge part. On the well-being side, there's all these apps out there, and telehealth, and all those type of things, which I think serve a purpose. I think it's a supplemental purpose, right? I don't think the human contact can ever be replaced. I think, and the human contact can look different for people, right? Some people, it's a very like face-to-face, like we're just gonna be very formal, right? Some people just need a hug. I know that sounds so silly. Like I'll hear about things happening with somebody and they just really, person who needs a hug, like, my gracious. And by the way, I don't go around hugging everybody. Right. I don't want to get in trouble. But sometimes it's that, even it's just a pat on the shoulder. It's like human physical touch that they need. And so I get worried sometimes with all the technology. The other side of technology is it becomes very metric driven, very black and white, and can remove the quality of the service. Which concerns me, but that's why I think it has to be viewed supplemental. It can't be like the only answer.
Yeah, so it has to be like a multi-approach.
Yeah.
Where you have a little bit, when you have your in-person contact, you have your technology. It's like a mixture of things together that allow it to function as one. That's good to hear. Yeah. Especially it's good to hear that from you, because like, especially when you're working in a function where you're in a a fulfillment center, and you're seeing all this. What was it, 4,000 people?
Yeah, roughly 4,000 people. Yeah,
massive facility. Went to the facility, massive facility, and like you're seeing folks every day come in with different things they're bringing from home and all that stuff. So it's like, I can see like how different aspects can help them. Everything's different.
Yeah, and I think too, like, we have part of our open door policies. We call My Voice, where an associate can go on, and it's basically an electronic board where they can say, hey, I've got this concern, or I've got this idea. And sometimes you got folks who are really upset, and either myself or I advise an operational leader or another support team or whomever are like, let's go talk to this person. Like, yes, I can respond, and I'll respond, but before I do that, let me go talk to them. Let me go understand what's actually happening and provide a face behind the comment for them to know, like, oh, wow, somebody is really invested in me. And it's not just, let me answer this question. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like, hey, I'm an AI.
Yes, exactly. We get accused of that sometimes. Like, can I not get an AI answer? So,
Right. Something. So that's fine. When it comes to your C-suite, or you talk to whoever you report to, that you're giving these metrics to, giving a breakdown to, what are you presenting to them? How are they, what are you presenting to them? How are you proving the fact that like you're helping the employees? What metrics do you bring to them at the table?
Yeah.
And then, so we talked about it earlier, guess a return on investment, and then your return on care. How do you prove both of those to them so they can fully understand like what's going on and even what you believe in?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. We talk a lot about the inputs that go into the outputs, right? We really focus on the inputs, which are things like, what is our engagement rate? What is our positive response rate? So when I was referring to My Voice, this virtual board that people can go on to, it's measured. People can go and basically rate our responses. And we look at, what is that rating? Do we have a good positive, or do we have a high negative response rate? Shortly after I joined Amazon, we went away from doing biannual surveys to daily surveys. And so every day, all employees get what we call a connections question. And it can be something about Amazon as a whole. It could be something about the safety. It could be something directed specifically at your manager. And then we'll review those. We'll review like how our leaders are doing. And you know, it's a data point. And I say that because sometimes people can get hung up on a data point. Like it's just one input of what that leader is doing. And so we look at all of that stuff. We look at, you know, the ultimate outputs of our people staying employed. Are they getting what they need? What are our benefit usage rates, right? Like we've got this great program called Career Choice where employees basically can have their education paid for, and it can look like it could be a four-year university, it could be a trade. You know, it's very different and, you know, fungible to what is going on with that population. So we look at that usage rate and, you know, are people taking advantage of those things? And then, you know, we have, you know, of course, our, you know, just overall rate of how is the building performing.
Right.
And it's all of those inputs that, you know, basically spit out a score, right? And like, how does the building doing? And then we look at it, right? Like that score can be different. You know, has there been a transition in leadership? Has there been something changed recently? You know, it's funny, recently we did some parking lot improvements and added some speed bumps, and people were not happy about that because they felt like it really slowed them down. But once we really explained, like, hey, this is for the safety of everybody, it went away. People were good with it, right? So that's why I say data points and understanding, like, okay, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And not just focusing on the number.
That's good, yeah, because some folks, like, they get so much data,
Yeah.
and then they kind of get lost in the data.
Yeah.
Then it's like, you're not even know what metrics to look at, because it's looking
Yeah.
at
I kind of have a love-hate relationship with people metrics because it's good to measure.
Yeah.
But when we measure, we get focused on number versus quality, right? Quantity over quality. And that's where I say I have a love-hate relationship with it. So
That's good.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like HR professionals leading organizational transformation, how does that look like to create that dynamic environment that they want?
yeah, I think you have to start with communication. You always have to communicate the whys. You have to take feedback in. You have to really, before you have like made a definitive decision if this is where we're going, talk to the stakeholders. And sometimes the stakeholders go all the way down to your, you know, employees who are in the field doing the work. And it should, right? Understand the impacts there. And then you really have to have a really robust change management plan. And it, like I said, it goes back to the communication, making sure everybody understands what's happening and why it's happening, and getting the right buy-in, right? Like, you know, I say all the time, if we're in this room, a group of leaders, let's hash this out. We're going to, you know, talk about what we think, you know, the disagreements and all that stuff. But when we walk out the door, we're on the same page. That way it doesn't create this, well, we're doing this because Donna said, right? Like, no. Like, we're doing this because X, Y, and Z. And so you have to make sure that when you're going through that change management process, that you get everybody on the same page.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like HR roles aligning with the business objectives with employee well-being, how does that get traced? Yeah, how does that happen?
Yeah, you know, I think it's something that evolves, and it's something where as HR professionals, we have to know what's going on within our communities, right? Like, we have to understand what our folks are coming into work with, to understand their well-being. We also have to be very educated on not just the resources we provide as an organization, what community-based resources do we have? You know, unfortunately, we have a wide range of people. We have people who are homeless. We have people who are in domestic violence situations. We have people who have serious health issues with their children. And those aren't always things we can fix internally, how do we reach out to the community and understand the resources there to help that person as well.
That's good. Can you share an example of a change initiative that you led?
Yeah, I think when I was on the logistics side, it was a newer business within Amazon, and from the HR perspective, it wasn't really built out. Meaning, like what we did, hours we worked, all that kind of stuff. And if you go to operations and talk to them about support they want from HR, they're going to tell you 24/7. Unfortunately, with our head count, that's not always possible. And on the logistics side in particular, it runs very lean. And so we had to determine how can we best support the business with what we had, right? And so, one of the things we did was looked at, like, what are our teams working? What hours are they coming in? And it was a wide range from like 3 a.m. till, all the way up to like 10 a.m. And this particular business runs at an odd operating time. So the employees are there at like 1 a.m. to like noon, basically. So we had to work and align what that looked like. And the hour we basically started with was a 5 a.m. start time, which, by the way, is also interesting when you're working with an exempt workforce of saying this is the hour you should be there. But we drove it more from this is the HR support time.
Got you.
And so, it wasn't an easy message to roll out. Like 5 a.m. is not a typical start time for an HR professional, right? And so we had to work through that and, really understand what barriers were there, were there personal situations, think about single moms, childcare issues, those type of things. So worked with the operations to set a timeline. I always think that's important. You've got to give folks enough time. You can't just say like, hey, in 2 weeks, I need you to change your life, right? So worked with that and then recognize that there's going to be one-off cases where you're going to have to make other adjustments, right? Right. So we started with that and then we went into a model of kind of making standard work. Like, this is what the role should look like.
Right.
Because that was not happening. Like, you had some folks who were really playing in that strategic space and being a business partner and, helping operations make decisions. You had other folks who were just very tactical on what they were doing, doing what I like to call shadow processes. So, doing work that really operations has access to do themselves. And so really aligning on what that looked like and thinking from a future state too, right? Like, how does this evolve? How is this going to continue to support the business down the line? So it was a big undertaking and, there was a lot of hitting the wall. There was a team of us that came together, which was great because it provided different perspectives. And, for me personally, leading a project like that, it challenged me because I also had to lead my peers essentially, right? And ensure timelines were met. And, we would often travel to an area to work together and, have whiteboarding sessions and making sure everybody was engaged in those things. And, it provided me personally a lot of growth. I'm the person who's going to be like just going down the floor and fixing problems and figuring out how we root cause those problems and, and take care of it versus putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
So leading such a big impactful project like that was a challenge for me. I hadn't done a lot of stuff in the project management space, but I've definitely taken that with me as a growth opportunity. And not just in a project space of how do I take that approach now when I'm root causing issues and fixing them long term or creating and shifting culture, it was good for the business for sure, but it was also good for me from a development standpoint.
Another treasure.
Yeah. Yes. I have a full treasure chest of things.
Donna, who has been your mentors? Kind of experiences have you gotten for people that have kind of led you, taught you? How do you excel to become who you are today?
Yeah, I often tell leaders that they never escape me. I keep them in my pocket. So I've had a lot of mentors formally and informally. I think the best mentors for me have been very strong, impactful female leaders. They, as a female leader myself, even in the HR space, there's barriers there of being assertive. There's barriers there of speaking up and finding your place, especially when you're in a room full of, high level male executives, right? So those mentors have been most impactful to me. I think as well, I kind of take a different approach to mentorship in that for me, it's not always just if you will, like professional development. I think in particular, one person who, she's my diversity mentor. And I say that because I recognize as a white woman, I have a lot of privilege. And there may be things that I don't look at or consider a certain way. So I have a mentor who is a fantastic Black female leader. And there's times where I'm like, I didn't even talk through this. Like, am I looking at this the right way? What am I missing?
Yeah.
And she's fantastic. And she's probably what I would say is my favorite mentor. Because while I'm focused on the diversity aspect, that's helping me develop professionally. Like if I'm not looking at that, I'm going to be stuck, right?
Yeah.
And so it helps me in how I approach things and how I make decisions and how I lead through things. So yeah, I think mentorship is incredibly important. I think sponsorship is something we don't look at enough. How do you have that voice in the room to advocate for you? Is incredibly important. And so with my team in particular, we talk a lot about that, often I'm like, well, who's your mentor? And it's a previous boss or it's a peer and somebody in the building, right? I'm like, no, let's get you somebody who's going to be that voice for you.
Yeah.
Who's going to speak for you in a room when you're not in there to speak for yourself and advocate for you.
That's good. That's good, man. Thanks for sharing different mentors in different areas to help expand your growth as well as professional. I mean, I'll say for me, culturally, my family's from Central America. My mom is, so when going down there to do business, I have to have a different lens on. I have to understand the way culturally, some folks may either show up late or maybe you got to do certain things before you get talking business. So I understand there's and you're upskilling yourself doing that versus someone that's not.
I think I often tell leaders that they never escape me. Keep them in my pocket. So I can work on, and let's find that person who can help you with that.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I got 3 questions, 2 important ones. So first one is going to be favorite books, resources to let HR professionals know right now on podcasts on how to improve in specific areas. And then also the last question along with that will be, how do you keep yourself resilient and continue to push through any type of situation that you face?
Yeah, those are great questions. So books, I will be very transparent. I'm new to reading again. I used to love to read, but I'm coming back to it. Atomic Habits was one of the first ones I picked up to get back into it. I think it gives a really good approach of building habits, to your point, that create resiliency. And then, like I said, Mel Robbins, huge fan. The Let Them Theory. She has a podcast. That's great. Love that. Another favorite author personally, Brene Brown. Love her. I think Atlas of the Heart is a great book. It's a hard book because it really makes you look inside. So it's not one that I just read through. I had to put it down sometimes. I'm like, oh, that's deep. Yeah. So those are probably the main ones that I'm thinking of right now. In regards to staying resilient, I think reminding yourself why you do what you do.
Good.
And do you like it? Do you love it? Right? There's no way I could do this job if I did not like what I do, or what I do rather, excuse me. It's hard and it's heavy and it's constant. It's one of those things, I tell people, I'm like, you can never take your foot off the gas and you can never get complacent. If you do those things, you will just struggle. So being open to change, evolving, wanting to learn, are huge things that I think keep me going. And then for me, like, seeing the personal little wins, it can be anything. It could be something big. Like, I've recently had somebody on my team promoted and they're going to take on their own building in Detroit. Like, my heart is busting with pride with that one. It can be something as small as, like, we had an associate who was really upset about their time and a lead they were trying to get taken care of. And I fixed that for them. And, like, they come in and check with me weekly just to say hi. Like, those take the wins. You take the wins no matter how small they are. And like I said, remember why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that is powerful. Thanks for sharing that. Because I always feel like, you know, hearing your experience, like, I know there's a lot. It just sounds like a lot of personal development, a lot of upskilling, a lot of learning, a lot of keeping your eyes open, keeping your eyes peeled for like different opportunities, different treasures.
Yeah.
Come about and learning from that. So it's just unique to hear your point of view. Like, thanks for sharing that today. Like, I think a lot of folks may keep yourselves in a shell or bubble and don't try to expand, like get out, learn the word. Sometimes we keep ourselves in our own bubble, and if we don't learn what else is on the outside, and then we're like, oh my gosh, like, this is going on in my life, but there's so much more going on. Like, let me take myself from first person view and look at the third person view, and then assess the whole situation. That's that emotional intelligence or something you're talking about. So, I know you've been wondering about this envelope, huh? That's on the
What's in here?
What's in this envelope? So every podcast, we have each guest read a question from the former guest.
Okay.
And then the same guest ends up writing their own question at the end of their podcast. So I'm gonna have you do two things. You're gonna end up opening the envelope, read the person's name, then read the question. After that, answer the question, and then after that, go ahead and write down your next question. So if you need time to think about it, take time to think about it. But we're gonna have you open the envelope.
All right. Hello. Let's see. All right. So this is from Jay Trembadia.
There you go. Pronounce it right. Yep. I'm not gonna get fraud right now.
There are so many. Right. There are so many to help others. Example, hunger, mental health, etc. What's one way you want to help others? Yeah. Something I'm super passionate about right now in my current role, which is in Bessemer, Alabama. High crime area. Gun violence is normal. One of the things that I'm passionate about and I want to help is how do we help the community, which ultimately becomes our employees, right? How do we work with the local government to look at the resources they have, which goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? And incorporate that in the workplace. How do we meet people where they are? A lot of times I think organizations focus on children, which is great. Don't get me wrong. How do we work with the high school population?
Yeah.
How do we work with the, 16 to 22-year-old population who maybe didn't finish school? How do we work with those folks? How do we make gun violence not normal?
Right.
Right? Like, my first weekend there was this shooting that happened. And a couple days later, there was a retaliation shooting that happened. And I went into work and I was like, hey, is everyone okay? And my team, God love them, is looking at me like I got 10 heads. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so when I tell them, they're like, oh, that happens all the time. Like, wow, that's heavy. That breaks my heart. That should not be normal.
Right, it shouldn't be normalized.
So that's definitely something that I want to continue to work on. And, it's interesting. I was a little hesitant moving to Alabama, but Birmingham's taken a piece of my heart to where I'm invested in the community and I want to continue to help there.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because I know that's what I know what Tron was talking about when he went out there too. Like same thing. He's like, yeah, man, it's a high crime area. We're trying to make change here.
Yeah.
And y'all have.
Yeah.
That lets you know about the impact, the transformation that you bring to the organization and anywhere you go. Yeah. Your light shines. So that's powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that.
Powerful. So Now it's going to be, well, before we have you ask your question, write down your question. We have a gift for you.
Okay.
And every HR professional that comes on our podcast, we call them Vitality Voyagers.
Love that.
You are an innovator. You are someone who wants to make change and bring change to every organization you go to or every site you go to impact lives. And that's who you are. And that's what we always, we love to celebrate those people that come on our podcast.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on today. And we really appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you for what you're doing. This is great to get these messages out to folks.
Thanks. So go ahead. It's your turn next to go ahead and write down the next question.
Do you want me to read it at all, or?
Oh no, don't read it.
Okay.
Yeah. Next guest go say it, but follow the same format. So everyone, thank you so much for watching today. Donna, she dropped some heavy nuggets, some heavy treasures that is just going to impact every HR professional that's watching this, and business development, all that. So just know in life, like, empathy is key to having success in your business. At the end of the day, like, you have to pay attention. Every function is different. You have the corporate function, you have the more on-site function, and at the end of the day, it's good to get a taste of both so you're able to understand what's going on in the entire business, not in just one segment. So thank you so much for watching today. Donna, again, thank you so much for coming on, and this was great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.